Welcome to the Right Awake podcast. I'm your host, Kayan Robertson. I'm dressed on theme today, black, white, and red all over, because we will be discussing Ink and Soul magazine with its co-founder, Miss Epiphany Castro.
I am not your ambassador. I am not your agent, envoy, figurehead, delegate, or representative. I seek to merely educate the human race, the human's race. What are we racing from? What are we racing to? What are we racing for? My life is not a race. Why is yours? My goal is to emancipate thoughts. Emancipate from the chains of restrictive negativity encircling my ankles mercilessly as a constant companion, constantly. Not long ago, I was bought and told and sold a boat full of lies, lies by design, a blueprint to annihilate my very spirit. The architects had a detailed plan, striking at the heart of a dove as only a vulture can, piercing and pecking at eyes meant to simply stare at the sun. Yet with clarity comes a new sense of responsibility to scratch and sniff far beyond the surface, beyond the oblivious and the obvious, delving perhaps into the human condition and on occasion the inhuman condition.
Good morning, Mrs. Castro. Thank you again for your time today. I really appreciate you coming. I wanted to start with the title of the magazine. I know you talked about this in brief on your Instagram, but if you'd like to let the viewers know why the title Ink and Soul and maybe some of the titles that didn't make the cut.
We wanted something that told people kind of what it was about, that it was ink, i.e. it was a magazine, it was words, and soul. It was very important for us to have the word soul included, probably because I'm a huge fan of Soul Train. It really is the truth, though. Soul Train, Ink and Soul. Ink because it's writing, soul because all things soulful. There wasn't that many other choices. We really zeroed in on Ink and Soul, and there were a couple of companies that have something like that, but it's just Ink and Soul. And what we wanted to do was Ink and Soul magazine, like Interview magazine. Andy Warhol's magazine was called Interview magazine. It was not called Interview. It was called Interview magazine. So we wanted to do sort of the same thing. So there wasn't really any other contenders. Ink and Soul was created by Toy and myself. Toy is the co-founder. We wanted something that represented writing and soulfulness. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of Soul Train. All things soul, peace, love, and soul. You get the picture. So yeah, that's it. Ink and Soul is a creative living magazine. That means that it does not adhere to one specific area of living. So it's not a gardening magazine or a architectural magazine. It's a creative living magazine. Stay with me. So when I was a child, my Aunt Georgianne, who was is a scientist, amongst many other things my Aunt Georgianne is, always said that any problem could be solved with a teaspoon of creativity. That means you could balance your checkbook with a teaspoon of creativity. You could make up a recipe with a teaspoon of creativity. You could get from point A to point B with a teaspoon of creativity of how to design your route to get there. You get what I'm saying. So my Aunt Georgianne's words were a huge, huge, huge inspiration behind how we wanted to build this magazine, that everything in life is built around being creative. That's pretty much it. Creative living was important to us. That's the way we live our lives, and we live gainfully employed, meaningful lives. And I think people think that when you're creative and you're artsy or whatever, that you're just, couch surfing and don't have a 401k and whatever, that you're not a responsible person in society, whatever that means to some people. I am and was a teacher, and Toy was a veteran, so we know a little something about being responsible people. At the same time, being poets, performing poets, poets that write, poets that record. We definitely know what it's like to be working artists who have day jobs and sometimes don't, and most of the time do. But creativity was very important to us, and we wanted to make sure that everybody celebrated their creativity in every avenue of their life. And that is pretty much how we built that.
You mentioned Soul Train, and I'm really glad I wore my afro because of that. But also, I know you follow me on the Writer Wait page, but I also, my other page, my personal Instagram is @PeaceLoveRobbie. So I definitely resonate with those vibes. I love that you guys are using the word soul as sort of all-encompassing, especially since you discuss so many different things, including food and the debate on how people like to take their grits. But I also know that you're vegan, as was our last guest last quarter, who I know you're familiar with. I would like to know, how does gardening influence your soul, or how has that impacted you? What are some other life lessons from the garden that you have received? And while we're talking about your Aunt Georgianne, I know you mentioned that she did a great many things, and I find it a privilege to be surrounded by creative people, which I know isn't everyone's privilege. Like, for instance, my family sort of all over, so I'm only really had my household grown up, my mom, my sisters, my stepfather. So I was wondering, what are some of the creative outlets that she had, since I know that you sort of grew up around her and a lot of other familial adults.
Gardening teaches you many things. One of the things you learn in gardening is control is not really yours. There's only so much you can do to control things. You can try, you can do your best to plan. Failing to plan is planning to fail. I think I spoke of that on Instagram the other day. I've been doing this thing called Garden Tales to sort of inspire people from their garden. You have to plan. I believe in life. I'm a planner. I'm a note taker. I plan a lot of things. I write notes about everything that drives Toy crazy, because she's like, can you write that down? Because my brain operates like it's on like 6 windows open at one time. So forgive me. So let's get back to the gardening. Planning is something you learn that's essential. I think it's essential in my life. What you do in your life is your business. Patience. Everything doesn't just grow overnight. It just doesn't, Control. You can only control so much. This is the hard thing for somebody like me who's a Scorpio. Those were the main lessons I've learned in my gardening adventures, which actually truly started during lockdown, during the pandemic, although my family gardened all my life. But me as an adult, really taking it seriously, growing things to eat, not just for fun, that happened during the pandemic. I am very vegan. People think vegans are skinny. I am not skinny. I am not obese either. I'm very comfortable where I am. I've been vegan for 16 years. Yep, 16 years. I initially went vegan because I was sick. I was unhealthy and I didn't feel good. And I was already vegetarian, so making the jump wasn't that big of a deal to me. I also happen to love animals. And I just took it one step further in believing, what's the difference between me petting my dogs and my cats and my bunnies in my classroom and my hamsters and my gerbils and whatnot, than goats and chickens and lamb and cows, and even the things that are not cute still deserve to live. Or at least they don't deserve to die so that I can eat them, for sure. So that's the way I look at it. I am the most cool vegan you'll ever know, because I really don't care what other people eat. That's their business. I truly believe that you're grown, you can do what you want. My husband is not vegan, my son is not vegan, but they adhere to vegan food. They can eat what I eat, I just can't eat what they eat. And so there's a lot of side dishes in our house, and we all love to cook. My son is a trained chef. So we're okay. We're fine with that here. People say, isn't it difficult? No, it's not. It's not. Isn't it difficult? I think it would be difficult if most people had to butcher their own animals. I bet you they wouldn't be eating them. I bet you. Most people don't have the stomach for it. I bet you. Some people might, I guess it's about perspective, right? About my beloved Aunt Georgianne that I speak of all the time. So people seem to think that my Aunt Georgianne raised me. She did not. I had a mother. She resides in heaven now. My Aunt Georgianne was married to my Uncle Lee, which was my mother's brother, but they were high school sweethearts, so I knew her all my life. I don't recall a time I did not know her. I think I was in their wedding when I was like in the first grade or something. So I don't remember a time I did not know my Aunt Georgianne. She was and is alive and kicking. She's in her 70s and she takes her backpack and walks around, goes everywhere. She takes BART, she takes an Uber. She doesn't even like to drive anymore. She prefers to just get around on her own in another sort of way. But she was a scientist at Lawrence Hall of Science here in Berkeley, California. She also was a teacher from Head Start all the way to college level. She was a belly dancer. She played a djembe drum. She bought me my first Graham Central Station album. She was a lot of things. She was also a dietitian at Alta Bates Hospital. So when you went to my Aunt Georgianne's house, you didn't put sugar on anything. There was no sugar at her house. There was really no dairy. I mean, you ate a very, very clean diet at her house. You did. And that was it. About other creative people in my family, everybody in my family is creative. Every single person. In my family, everybody had to play an instrument. My grandmother was a wedding gown seamstress by trade. Her brother was a furniture upholsterer by trade. Everybody in my family did something creative. My grandmother made dessert every single night. She had a beautiful rose garden. Everybody in my family was creative. Everybody could sew or knit or crochet. I can't sew. That's one thing I can't do. My brain doesn't operate that way. But I do knit, I do crochet, I do paint, I do garden, I do cook a lot. A lot. I make a lot of things. Me and my son cook a lot together. As I said, he went to culinary school. We make a lot of things. Sometimes we sell things. We make a lot of hot sauce. We do deconstructed cannabis infused, whatever we feel like doing. So my family was my mother, my grandparents, my two uncles, and my aunt, all in my house in Berkeley. My mother was divorced very young, and she moved back home with her family, and we all lived together. So that's why I was around a bunch of people. I have no siblings. There's just me and only me. My siblings were dogs. I'm a dog person. I like cats, but I'm a dog person. But I grew up with my family and lots of dogs and a big ass garden in the backyard. So that's that. My Aunt Georgianne, she's alive and kicking. She is doing just fine. She lives 5 minutes from here. I have to go over there and talk to her soon because I need to go and drop this off. Right? the new magazine.
I probably should say this later, but I gotta say right now, you're so fun to listen to. I love watching your videos, so I'm so glad that I got to have you on the podcast today. Your Aunt Georgianne sounds so cool, and I think it's how fortunate that you got to grow up with so many creative people around you, and that continues in your family with your son and everything. So many things I wanted to say, because you actually segued nicely to some of the other questions that I had. I know that I'm glad you showed the next magazine issue, because I know the next one comes out during National Poetry Month. And you also mentioned that you and Miss Latoya are poets. Do we get to look forward to including poems of your own? Did you take something out of the archives, create something new? If you did create something new for the magazine, what inspired your recent poetry? No sugar with your Aunt Georgianne. That sounds crazy. I don't think I'll be able to make it. Like, take the dairy, take the meat. I don't care. I've been eating vegan ever since interviewing Lord Snow. And so, which is a great time for me to ask you, what are your favorite vegan proteins, things that you eat to make sure you're getting all of the nutrients, but also absorbing them well? Are you a person who takes vegan creatine? You also mentioned starting gardening during quarantine for sustenance. So I think that is a brilliant idea. There was a lot of lifestyle changes for a lot of people that probably were a long time coming. Like, it sounded like you were gardening for fun, but now it's become more of a lifestyle. Living during lockdown kind of got us more in alignment with who we actually are, I think. So it was like something that was much needed. Some people enjoyed it, like myself, and I know Lord Snow said he enjoyed it. A lot of people did not, obviously, but I hope that more people than not, whether they enjoyed it or not, felt more authentic to who they would be if they were living a more natural lifestyle, being able to cherry pick from each aspect of the past and the present, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I did have, a chance to read some of your blog, and I noticed that you had 2 different articles about things you learned about yourself during quarantine. And I wanted to know, since those were obviously written in 2020, it's 6 years later, are there still a lot of things that you learned about yourself that you continued to keep with you? Are there, like, I know you allowed yourself to keep your natural hair color, which I love, by the way. Are there other aspects or things that you learned from yourself or continue to learn from yourself since quarantine that you keep in practice? Or other things that you probably didn't realize were changing then, that didn't make it to the blog, that still continue to surprise you? Like, hey, if it wasn't for quarantine, I wouldn't know this about myself.
The magazine is dropping for National Poetry Month, April 1st. What you cannot expect is any poetry from me. I'm retired. I haven't written a poem in 5 years. I write other stuff, but I haven't written a poem in a long time, unless maybe it was a challenge, and I don't really do well with stuff like that. Toy is the one that's extremely academic. That's rich coming from a teacher, right? Toy is working on a project. I think she's going to put out one more album. So for perspective, Lyrical Toy is her pen name, and Epiphany Castro is mine. Just my name. Nothing thrilling. I think, let's see, Toy, I think, wrote 2 books and 1 album. I did 3 albums and 1 book. Yes. I don't think you ever plan to stop. You just do, or it's a natural evolution with me, is what happened. I grew older and my interests got different. And that's what happened. We always knew that this Ink and Soul magazine was going to be a quarterly publication because we're an independent publication. That means everything comes from our wallet. So it is a costly endeavor the way we like to do it. So the best way to do it would be quarterly. So we set it up when we decided when we were going to release it. It just so happened that the second issue was going to drop in time for National Poetry Month. It was just kismet that way. It just happened that way. It wasn't really plotted or planned that way, but it worked out nicely because we are poets, I guess, deep down. I guess I still am. And we know a lot of poets, and we respect a lot of poets, and we celebrate a lot of poets. We have many, many poets that are very dear friends, many, many poets who write for the magazine, who are poets and writers, or poets are writers, writers are poets, right? There's a lot going into this new issue. Issue 2 has Talam Macy on the cover, probably one of the most celebrated poets in the world. That was very, very intentional. We have a lot of poetry-driven articles, including quite the article on haiku. All right, so I'm not going to give away everything. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but yes, the new Ink and Soul drops April 1st. You will be able to buy it then. You cannot buy it now, not even a little bit, not even the digital. The digital will not be free this time. This time there will be a cost for the digital. This issue is twice the size of the first one. So it's very, very big. And it's chock full of stuff. If you don't like to read, this magazine ain't for you because there's a lot of reading involved. So let's see about vegan creatine. No, that don't even know what creatine does. I should ask my homie, John Lewis, also known as Badass Vegan. He's like my little brother. He's not little. I'm 5'1". John is like, how tall is John? He's like 6'6". He's huge. He's huge. I do take supplements though. I take, what do I take? I take black seed oil. I take vitamin C. I take oil of oregano. I take red rice yeast. I take a couple of other things. They're all behind me. See? I have all my supplements are there, but I don't feel like going over there and getting them and showing you. But I do take supplements, but I am of the belief, as per my Aunt Georgianne, for a supplement to stick, you have to have some of that which you're putting in your body already must be in your body for it to attach itself. That's what my Aunt Georgianne says. Who knows? She's just a dietitian, a master dietitian. But that being said, I get my protein if I had $1 for everybody that asked about that. And we don't climb mountains and, get up and farm at 3 a.m. So we don't need the amount of protein people seem to think we do. How do you get your protein? Girl, stop. If people don't stop asking me that. But I get my protein mostly from 2 sources, tofu and beans. Those are the 2 things I eat the most of. Those are the 2 things I can cook with the best. I can use tofu a lot of different ways depending on the texture of the tofu. I can make sauces. I can grill it. I can air fry it. I can stir fry it. I can put it in soup and make it as a thickener. There's a lot of things I can do with tofu. And beans, I really like beans. And there's a lot that can be done with them, and they're very cost efficient. I understand that when a lot of people start going the vegan route, they use a lot of replacements because they miss the texture and the feeling of meat. I was not that person that enjoyed meat in that way. As a little girl, I was still sitting at the table because I wouldn't finish my steak. I'd never liked that texture. And if it had a bone in it, you could forget about it. That just was not going to happen. So, yeah, my protein mostly comes from either plants, because there is plant protein, y'all. And and some superfoods and tofu and beans. Yes, I did learn a lot during lockdown. That's true. And yes, I stopped dyeing my hair when this non-melanated person attempted to color my hair and did not know what she was doing and destroyed my hair. So I just came back and buzzed it all off and let the gray come back in. And now here we are. We're back locking it up again, right? I was natural when it wasn't popular. I was part of a community called Naturality.com. And that was when we traded recipes. This is when we had chat rooms, message boards. But we traded recipes. There was no texturized hair department at stores. We had to figure it out, and we did. And I think that was when I first started locking. I think I cut all the straightener out of my hair in like 1993 or something. And I was the butt of all the jokes at the hair salon. They just had the best time talking about me. When you gonna get a hairstyle? Because I had just like a little TWA. What they didn't know is at that time I was doing a play called Ain't Misbehaving, and I was sort of going for a very 30s look with the part on the side, the very short hair. But they didn't know that, and that's okay. And I just let it evolve and just be a TWA, and then I locked it up 3 times. I don't think my son even saw me with my hair not locked until he was in college. Literally. I literally had it from the time I carried him in my stomach until he was in college, or maybe his graduation, high school graduation, and I cut off all my locks. And then here we are. I'm back to it. I always said when I got older, I would grow them back because it was only hair, and I cut it off. And because that's the way I grew up thinking, it's only hair. So don't come at me. Don't be mad at me, people. It's only hair. It grows back. One of my lessons was just trying to grow old with grace and dignity was something that was important to me. I looked at my Aunt Georgianne, who has hair to her waist with these long gray streaks in her hair. Now it's all silver, but she had these long, she was very beautiful pregnant with these long, beautiful silver streaks in her hair. I just thought it was amazing. I just wasn't ready. And so I say all this to say, the lessons were to let things happen in their own time. But I did learn a lot during pandemic. One thing I learned the most is that I don't like people. Mostly. And I think that I always made myself feel like there was something wrong with me because I didn't enjoy large crowds and things like that. But I think I accepted it, and I embraced it and said, that is just who I am. It doesn't mean I'm not friendly. It means I would rather go to a concert where there's 250 people in the room versus a Coliseum stadium concert. You see what I'm saying? It's just the way I'm built. I don't like crowds. I don't like big crowds and things like that. And lockdown provided me with not having to deal with that. So I learned that the most, that I don't like being around large groups of people, that I truly value my very small group of friends that I have, that I have at my home. We even have sleepovers, and we play board games and things like that. So I am social to a degree. Even when I was in my 20s, I was looking at my watch when we were at the club, like, can I go home? Natural lifestyle. Natural lifestyle. Well, I've been like this a pretty long time. I'm from Berkeley, California. I think people have a very skewed vision of what that means. I think people think when you're natural, it means you don't wear deodorant or whatever. I wear deodorant. I just think our approach to things might be just a little bit different. When you grow up in the Bay Area, there's a lot going on here. A lot. It's a very, very artistic bubble growing up here. And it's a very holistic. It's like alternative medicine is just a way of, like, everybody has a chiropractor or acupuncture. It's not even a big deal. My doctor himself, he is a regular doctor. He is magnificent, but he encourages that I go to Stretch Lab, that I take supplements, that I'm vegan, that I garden. He's a big gardener too. So yes, I think it's a wonderful feeling being able to walk in your backyard and pick something off of your tree and put it in your mouth and know that there's no pesticides on it because you grew it your own damn self. So I think that that's a wonderful feeling. And also just getting your coffee every morning, which is what I do, and going out into the backyard with Hamilton, my dog, and seeing the progress. It's a wonderful feeling. I'm that older person that goes in the backyard every morning and sees what's going on with my garden. And now it's March, it's that time to really start doing the garden. So gardening inspires me a lot. Making something from nothing inspires me a lot. I think that is a good thing.
Are you still baking since quarantine? I wanted to ask you about that because you mentioned that in one of your articles. You also said in the magazine that you have a recipe for vegan cheese. My favorite vegan cheese that I'm aware of is a cashew milk cheese from Mioikos. You have to order it off of the internet. I literally will order like $80 worth of it at a time. It keeps well, tastes delicious. I will literally just eat that. And that's why I asked you about your favorite vegan protein. So thank you for sharing your supplements, because really what I was wanting to know was how do you make sure you're not missing some important micronutrients or things that we don't even realize that we're getting. Not that animal products are so super well-rounded that they have everything, but it's just like if you're eating meat, you're probably also eating vegetables, versus if you're eating a plant-based lifestyle and you're someone who is like me, who gets in this mode where I'm only eating one thing constantly, I know I'm missing nutrients. So, like if I buy the $80 worth of vegan cheese, I'm eating that and crackers, and that's probably it. Otherwise, I'm probably eating chips, guac, and salsa, and that's probably it. I have been vegan before, but after a couple years of that, I was like, I feel like I need to really start thinking about this, thinking about supplementing. What am I getting? What am I missing? So it started back with like, let me just add eggs to my diet. But it's a long story how I got into eating meat again, but I won't bore you with those details. But just because you had 16 years vegan, so I know that you get that question a lot, because just in my 2 years vegan, I was getting the question about protein a lot. And I was like, there's vegan proteins all over the place. Like I literally make a pot of beans every week. So, but then after a while, I was just like, well, how am I going to sustain this for the rest of my life when I'm not properly supplementing? I know, but I do currently, I'm taking, algae supplements. So spirulina and what's the other one? Chlorella. So I'm taking those right now. So I know I'm good on my nutrients for the time being, and I just need to make sure I keep buying things like that. So I'm definitely writing black seed oil, oregano oil. I'm getting that down. So if you're willing, would you share your vegan cheese recipe, or at least give us an idea of what the base is for that? And what would be your ideal vegan Sunday dinner? If you were cooking and you were hosting all vegans, what would you prepare on a spread, or what would your son prepare, your family prepare? What else are you growing this year other than the red chili peppers, which I saw on your Instagram? And your doctor recommended Stretch Lab, but one of your articles, you mentioned some things that you wanted to check off your list for new experiences to try. Since publishing that article, have you tried any of those experiences or redone any of the experiences that you had tried prior to writing that article? And specifically, I was wondering if you had tried the head spa or the face gym.
Yes, I still bake. My son's specialty was baking. So he's a baker by trade. I do bake, but it is not my favorite thing to do because baking requires precision. I'm not a precise person. My husband and my son always say, I think it was Christmas 2 years ago. I was very, very sick and I was trying to tell them how to make certain things. And they're like, but Mom, you don't have it written down anywhere. It's true. I'm like, but just put this in there and that and do this and put like a whole onion and then make a root. Okay, so I'm terrible about that, about writing down certain things. Certain things are just in my head. Other things I do have written down and I refer to it. Stay with me. I heard your cry about the vegan cheese. So cheese I loved more than life itself. That was like the hardest thing for me to give up as a vegan was cheese. And yes, Miyoko's was the best vegan cheese on the market. That is true. But I do not buy Miyoko's because Miyoko's company was taken from her and she has spilled all of her recipes that you can get right here on YouTube. Miyoko's kitchen she doesn't own her company anymore. They pushed her out of her own company. So we, the people, don't support that company anymore. But you know who we do support? Her. And she gave away all her recipes, her cheese, her butter, everything. Okay, so there's that. So just stop buying her stuff. Stop it. And buy her cookbook instead and make it yourself. My favorite homemade cheese, we make two different kind. I should say my son makes most of it because he has more patience than I do. We make two kinds. We make a hard cheese and a soft cheese. The hard cheese base is agar, which is a ocean version of gelatin, right? Because gelatin obviously comes from bones of animals. Obviously, vegans don't eat it, right? And gelatin is what often makes hard cheese hard, right? Like so that you can slice it. It's not a creamy, spreadable cheese. Okay, so there's that. So agar, A-G-A-R, that's the base of that. So you can look up any recipe that has agar in it, or they sometimes call it agar, say it twice, right? Cashew-based cheeses we often make as a spread as well, using a nut-based cheese, cashew, because it blends up smoothly. That's usually why people like it. And then a silky kind of cheese would be tapioca based. There's my favorite restaurant here called Solely Vegan, and her cheese sauce, if you will, that she would put on a cheeseburger that's already kind of melty is stretchy because it already has tapioca in it. Same thing with mac and cheese. You would use it in that. So I make 3 different kinds, right? I make one that's a hard cheese, one that's a stretchy kind of mozzarella texture, and then one that's a spready pate kind of texture. So there's that. Back to the supplements. The 2 I forgot to mention was hawthorn berries and berberine. Those are the other things I take in addition to black seed oil, oil of oregano, red rice yeast supplement, vitamin C I also take, and I take a multivitamin. Another trick from the Aunt Georgianne Bible, when my son was little, and he was not a picky eater, he was not. He really was not. He didn't like meat that much either. My son didn't start eating meat till he was in high school, really. Is my Aunt Georgianne believed in chopping up at least 2 cups of spinach and adding it to just about anything. Pasta sauce, chop up spinach, add it. Rice, chop up some spinach, add it. Whatever, spinach, because she believed in all that iron, right? Dark leafy green. So we still do that. And as a teacher, I would tell parents to do that to their kids that were picky, because you can blend it up, especially if your kid likes pesto, right? Because it's already green. What would I have for vegan Sunday dinner? Well, we do have Sunday dinner here every Sunday, and mostly it's vegan. I'd say 95% of the time Sunday dinner is vegan. Saturday and Sunday is generally more extended vegan recipes because time is more fruitful on the weekend. Vegan Sunday dinner ideally would be something like vegan crab cakes, which my husband adores. He likes vegan crab cakes more than regular crab cakes, right? So vegan crab cakes, macaroni and cheese, because everybody likes macaroni and cheese, or a cold pasta salad, which would be fine with me. Some sort of soup. I like soup. I might make a vegan clam chowder and I use trumpet mushrooms. Or I could use trumpet mushrooms and do like grilled scallops. I would do like a vegan seafood sort of thing. I use a lot of seaweed and fumikake seaweed seasoning to make things fishy. I use hearts of palm to make fish sort of things like the crab cakes, fish sticks. I actually use eggplant for fish fillets, and I put it in Slap Your Mama seasoning and fry it up, and it's just like fish. But you have to season it. You have to marinate it. What else? So mac and cheese, probably 2 different kinds of salads because I like texture. A soup. If I didn't have mac and cheese, I might do a risotto. But we wouldn't have 2 carbs. That just wouldn't happen. One or the other. We would definitely have dessert. My favorite dessert is usually some sort of tart, like a lemon curd tart, which we can do very easily vegan. You can veganize lemon curd very easily. But my grandmother used to make a pound cake, and she would slice it widthwise and hollow it out and put whipped cream and plums inside it, right? She would candy plums, like just quickly in the pan and put it in there, and then put the top on top of the pound cake and then slice it. It's pretty delicious. Plums are my favorite thing. I love plums and watermelon. But there's not a lot of watermelon desserts. But you know what is good is pickled watermelon rind. Yes, it is. I like pickled anything except okra. That's the only vegetable I will not eat. It's not going to happen. Not ever. That is the only vegetable I will not put in my mouth. In theory, I only like things that are crispy and snappy. I don't like anything floppy. So I'm not the biggest fan of tomatoes unless they're small and firm. And that brings us to the garden. What are we growing? A lot of tomatoes, man. I'm growing like 6 different kind of varieties. Tomatoes, kale, spinach, red onion, green onion, artichoke, broccoli, lots of flowers, medicinal flowers, echinacea, chamomile, zinnia, marigold, because they're also good for the pollinators too. Lots of rosemary, tons of basil. I also grow hydroponically. So I have hydroponics in our garage. I have 2 hydroponics. That's where I tend to grow basil. I grow a lot of basil and salad greens and sometimes cannabis. But a lot of lettuce because I believe in growing what you eat. And I also believe in eating seasonally. Now in California, we can pretty much eat just about anything any time of the year because if we can't get it or it's not grown, it's grown in a hothouse. Like when that egg thing was happening, most of the stores around here had their own laying hens. So they weren't tripping. Their hens were laying eggs. So there wasn't like I don't know where these prices of eggs were because it wasn't here. But anyway, so I'm growing a lot of stuff back there, and that's just the start. That's not even, the front yard is only flowers. I don't grow anything but flowers. The back, I have a lot. I also have a lot of fruit trees. I have a persimmon tree, an orange tree, a Asian pear tree, an apple tree. Soon to have, I have a lemon tree in the front, but I'm going to also grow a Meyer lemon tree. I'm going to plant a Meyer lemon tree and a Japanese maple tree. Now, these trees are going to stay in pots because in 2 years, we're retiring and moving to the country, and I'm taking them with me. All my gardening is in raised beds, so those things will be going with me too. So our soil here in 10A is my zone. It's very clayish and very difficult. So we talked about the vegan Sunday dinner, which is mostly like crab cakes. Oh, I might do a vegan jambalaya. Did I mention my family is from New Orleans? Yeah, so there's a lot of Creole food that goes down. I can make a vegan gumbo. I can make a vegan etouffee. I can make a vegan jambalaya. I can make a vegan shrimp Creole. I can do a vegan shrimp and grits. I know you're wondering where I get those vegan shrimps from. Actually, my nail tech is from Vietnam, and she goes to a Vietnamese market and she gets it for me. So it's very nice. Experiences. Yes, I did talk about experiences in issue 1. And yes, I did have one. Just the other day, in fact. Friday, I went to the head spa. It was so good. It was so good. Okay, so the head spa, it goes by time, what you book. So you can book a half hour, an hour and a half, 2 hours. There's this giant body massage chair, which I opted to have turned off because it was bothering my sciatica. It felt good everywhere else, that was just too much. It was too intense on my back, in my lower back. But everything else was awesome. They have you change into like a little spa get up, just goes around your, it's like elastic thing you step into because you are very wet. They got the spray. It is quiet. It is clean, pristine even. And they wash your hair. They give you a scalp scrub exfoliant. They steam it. There's this halo that goes back and forth with the water shooting out over it. She is washing. She is massaging. She's giving me a facial. It's like a facial gym and a head spa at the same time. So I got 1 hour because I had never had it before. I didn't know really what to expect. I got the 1 hour. It cost $100 and it was worth every penny. So she started with the facial and moved to the hair as there was a mask on my face. She moved to washing my hair, and she was Korean and very comfortable doing my black hair. They had a list of everything that they were going to do. She did not talk at all during the process except to say kind things like, your skin is so soft, or are you comfortable? Things like that. She wasn't chatty, which I truly appreciated. So, I think it even went a little bit longer. You started with a foot soak upon arrival. You take off your shoes and you get a foot soak with a lovely cup of peppermint tea and some dried fruit and nuts. And then you change your clothes and you go into the spa room and you get it going there. And it was perfection. She was extremely professional. It was extremely relaxing. I wish I would have booked 2 hours. Next time we'll go for 1.5. We'll just keep it moving. But yes, I had one of my bucket list experiences was indeed the head spa, and I was ready for it, and I encourage you all to do it. It was amazing. I think you were asking about Stretch Lab. So Stretch Lab I've done before. It's assisted stretching where you have somebody who's helping you stretch. I don't need that much. I am a very flexible person, probably doing yoga all my life. I'm really pretty flexible, but my husband is not. So for Valentine's Day, I got him a package of Stretch Lab. So he goes for assisted stretching. The other thing that I will revisit is a Thai massage, which is amazing also. But we'll talk about that when it happens. Okay? All right. So I hope I answered everything. Yes, I bake, but I prefer to cook. I prefer to cook because I don't like to measure. Vegan cheese, I gave you the lowdown on that. Do not buy from Miyoko's because it has her name, but they kicked her out of her own company. My Aunt Georgianne says add 2 cups of spinach chopped finely to everything. You can even puree it. Hawthorn berries and berberine are the supplements I forgot to mention. Vegan Sunday dinner, vegan fish driven. Agar is what makes vegan hard cheese hard. What am I growing? I gave you the lowdown. I'm going to grow hibiscus. I want to grow a tea garden. I want to grow lots of things that I can grow and dry and have my own tea. And I talked about the head spa. So there you go. Hope that answers your question.
This is such a fun interview. It is so fun watching you. You're so animated and lively, and I'm just literally like sitting back, legs crossed, just taking it all in. So I'm trying to like match your energy as well because I'm super tired, but you're really giving me all the energy today. So thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for telling me about Miyoko's as well, because that's really kind of devastating. I did not know that. So I won't be supporting that product anymore, but I will be looking into that cookbook as well as the one that you put in Ink and Soul magazine for the first issue. The one with the salads, they looked so good. They weren't ordinary salads. I also really like pickled things, especially pickled onions, which I feel like was in that salad. That was like the main image for that article, if I'm not mistaken. But that just made me like, I definitely need to be pickling my own onions and things like that. While you were talking about growing hibiscus for tea, it made me remember that I'm loving blue lotus flower right now. I have not actually drank it as a tea, but I recently stopped smoking pot and I tried that, like blue lotus flower instead. And I was like, had I known this existed, I never would have been smoking marijuana to begin with, because I was doing so for anxiety purposes. And that just, after 3 days, I was just like, it was just like, well, you're in California, so I was about to compare it to the deafness, like where sound disappears when in a blanket of snow. But I don't know if you can really relate to that. Wherever you are. I think you said Burbank, but the anxiety just disappeared. It was completely gone. And I was just like, one day I was just like, where is my anxiety? Like, I was confused, I was baffled, and it would have been frightening, except I wasn't able to be anxious about my lack of anxiety. Would you ever share a garden tour or, you know, show off your hydroponics on Instagram or anywhere? I'm a little disappointed that you won't be sharing any of your poetry in this magazine, but I do know that you have hand selected the people who will be sharing poetry, and that you and Miss Latoya have been very intentional about the writers that you bring in. So I'm still excited to see what that next issue is going to bring. But would it be possible, either now or later on your Instagram, to get you to share some of your archived poems, something that you've written that you feel still holds up? If not, totally fine, but I would greatly welcome it, just so I can get a style of your poetry writing, which actually leads me to one of my next questions. Oh, perfect. The very next question. I love it when that happens. The article in this issue, claiming the Black voice, using Black language as resistance and healing. That was a whole moment. Like, the whole issue, I know, like, you can tell that it was ordered in a way that was intentional as well. I think that's a part of Ink and Soul. If you ask me my take on Ink and Soul, it is like reading something that still gives off the vibes of jazz. The word culture obviously comes to mind. But intentional is another one of those words that I'll probably use again and again in talking about Ink and Soul. Okay, between you, Miss Latoya, and all of the other writers that you've chosen for this magazine, there are a multitude of different styles of writing, different ways that each of you use language, some more casual, some very poetic anyway, not in writing poems, but speaking poetically. And as an educator and writer, I was wondering, did you have advice that you can offer to a new writer or someone who is trying to figure out how to find their voice when it comes to writing? I also wanted to ask, just because they both came up in this issue very briefly, did you have a chance to listen to the Jill Scott or J. Cole albums that they just released this year? And how did you feel about them? Did you have any feedback? Did you have any feedback that you might care to share on either album, or anything that specifically was a favorite to you? Or did they at any point take the words out of your mouth or express something in a way that hit the nail on the head for you, so to speak? In many of your reels, you've referred to different people as extended family, especially by way of sisters. And it makes me imagine that Ink and Soul, the members in the Ink and Soul magazine are more like a family. How is it navigating this shared project with a team that is collaborating from different states is what I wanted to ask you. And I said that was going to be my last question because I was going to ask the other one later. But while we're on this subject, I know that you and I talked about me possibly doing an article for Ink and Soul and coming up with a topic that I could even speak about that would fit your magazine. If there's anything that inspires that right now that you might want to mention, feel free, because I'm still kind of contemplating what I could possibly do. I do feel confident as a writer. I even think I unintentionally have created a sort of voice that I use when I write. But hopefully your advice here adds to that or helps me adjust that in some ways. I'm also writing a sequel right now, so I would love to see how your advice might influence that, but especially how it could help me figure out where I would fit, even if it's just a one-time article for Ink and Soul.
First of all, so let's be clear. I'm from the Bay Area, Berkeley, California. I'm from the Bay. Yes, home of Ryan Coogler, home of La Russell, home of E40, home of Too Short, home of Digital Underground. I'm from the Bay. I wear well. Garden tea. So I heard you talking about I think you were talking about butterfly pea shoot. I think there's two. It's a blue tea. It's a very nice tea. I did grow some of that last year, but I grew it too late, so it didn't do what it was supposed to do. I am planning to grow my own tea garden. No, you cannot see my garden. It is not ready to be seen. I'd let you see parts of it. You saw the peppers, you saw my orange tree, you saw my zinnia, my marigolds and things like that. But who you should see is Teresa Speight, Speight. She's known as Cottage in the Court on Instagram, and she has a book called Black Flora. And she's our new writer for our magazine. She is the master gardener. She used to write for Martha Stewart Living. That's who you want to talk about gardening with. She's the shit. She knows everything about everything. Yes, our magazine is extremely intentional. Everything in our magazine is intentional. There's nothing about our magazine that is random at all. Nothing. Every single thing is intentional. I love that you love the article by Nisi. That was a very special article. She is a brilliant writer. Wait till you hear or read The Sound of the Closing Gate by Ellery. Ellery Winslow. That's gonna be quite the, yeah, it's in that same vein about the writers for our magazine. I'm creative director. Part of my job is coming up with subject matter. The other part of my job is deciding who would best fit writing about said subject matter. And that's what I do. Some of us, all of us, write very differently. I write very casually, very from a perspective of observation. Toy's more academic. We have a lot of different writers, and everybody is different in their own way, and that's why it works. We're a very small group. There's about 4 or 5 of us. It's grown, maybe 6 of us now, on Ink and Soul Magazine's team. But Toy and I are still the core people. If something needs to be done at the end of the day, if there needs to be one more article, it's gonna either be Toy or me that's gonna probably have to write it at the last minute. That's just the way it goes. Yes, our magazine is very intentional. Yes, it is poetry heavy this issue because it is the National Poetry Month issue. The next issue comes in July. That's the wellness issue. The wellness issue is all about wellness, inside and out, from top to bottom, rooter to tutor. That's what's going on there. You asked, had I listened to any new stuff this year? Of course I have, girl, please. Of course, Jill Scott's album is brilliant. It is amazing. It is astounding and worth every one of them 10 years we waited. Another favorite this year is Zoe Expansions. Zoe and Tall Black Guy. That album is banging. Moonchild, Waves. That album is astoundingly good. It is so good. So those are like my top 3 so far this year. I think maybe if I forgot something, don't be tripping. My advice to writers is be yourself because everybody else is taken. Find your own voice. Don't be corny. Respect those who came before you. Study those who came before you. I know that in this moment, everybody thinks that they know everything. I think that's part of also being young. But if I was a poet, especially one that liked to perform my poetry in public, I would be running to Def Poetry Jam box set and looking at the masters who have done it. I'd be studying Sheehan. I'd be studying Black Ice, the real Black Ice. I'd be studying Sonny Patterson. I'd be studying my homie Ursula Rucker. I'd be studying Talam Acey. I'd be studying Mark Marcel. I'd be studying Abyss. There's so many people that are so good at what they do. So many people. And they came before you, you know. There's so many movies. That's why the hit list in the first issue was the greatest poetic moments in cinema. That doesn't mean poetry movies. It means poetic moments that happened on film. And so we compiled that list with great intention. Great intention. I mean, Cooley High is on there. Cooley High is on there for sure. The entire box set of Def Poetry Jam is in there. I think one of the best moments we put in there also was Daveed Diggs when he was the host of Brave New Voices. And he's so good. He's so good. My favorite poet. Y'all ain't gonna do that to me. I'll give you some of my favorite poets, but I'm not gonna give you all of them. So when somebody said, who's like some of your favorite poets? What comes to mind immediately is Ursula Rucker. She is the greatest at her craft. And then I'm gonna go with Sheehan. No one has ever done it like him, and he has the best personality. he was built for this shit. You know what I mean? He was built. His personality, he's just everything. Shihan is everything. Ursula Rucker is everything. There's some people that are, Mark Marcel. I'm sad he didn't get that Grammy, but I'm glad a lot of people now know who he is. He's amazing. So I'm going to stop there because I could just keep going on and on and on, because there's so many good poets, so many good poets, so many great poets. Yeah, that's about it. Be yourself because everybody else is taken, and don't be corny. Don't be corny, and rehearse your craft. There's nothing wrong with rehearsing. Some people are naturally gifted and they can just remember things. Other people can't. Other people don't even care if they rehearse it. They're going to pull out that phone, that piece of paper. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. What matters is the art. That's what matters.
Of course, the Bay. I am so sorry. I don't know California well, but if I know anything about you, I know that you're from the Bay Area. You are very prideful about that. I know that so is La Russell and that you love him. So I should have known that. Please forgive me. Berkeley. I'm going to remember that. The other B city that I know of in California. So yeah, me from the East Coast, not very well traveled. That is my mistake. I'm so sorry. But thank you for sharing your poetry with me. I did listen to a couple of them. Your voice, I already love your voice, but I think of it as a fun voice, really exciting. And then I'm listening to you over the chosen music that you used, and I'm just so captivated by it. So thank you so much for sharing that. I hope that I don't run into any copyright issues with like putting those, or not all of them, but sharing excerpts from your poetry in this video on YouTube. But if I do, I'll definitely just make sure to show them on Instagram more so than YouTube if I have any issues with that. But you're very talented, gorgeous. I love the covers that you chose. I mean, everything is, again, intentional. So, yes, I'm glad that you brought up Ursula Rucker. She rocked my world. I had never heard of her. I want to read this exactly as I wrote it because I think that would be the fastest way to get through it. So if you'll bear with me. But first, before I do that, like even the #1 person that you put on the hit list for this issue, Prentice Powell, The System. I mean, first of all, I've never heard a poem about a subject that is like that. I guess, most of the poems that I've heard are more personal, and that was more outside of the self, something that everybody can relate to, not from their personal stories, but something societal, I think is what I'm trying to say. So that was an interesting take. And then just to watch how he delivered that robotically and almost in a cold way, even just something as simple as putting his hat over his eyes. Oh my gosh. So yes, thank you for this whole list because it definitely, I've said it here, so I don't repeat myself, I'm just going to read this. I've always said that I'm not certain that I truly get poetry. I'm not sure what it is if it doesn't need to rhyme. I get poetic devices. I love using them in narratives. And if I'm reading it versus hearing it performed by the original writer, I'm certain that I'm missing something. I've written several poems. I've been told they were good, but I have given up poetry for feeling like a fraud. I may even avoid poetry at the risk of feeling too deeply without truly understanding. This section, The Greatest Poetic Moments in Cinema, was the class on, masterclass, was the masterclass on poetry I've been waiting for all of my life. It was easy to follow the links in the digital version of the magazine, but I anticipate the arrival of my physical copy. And I was wondering how you guys made those links accessible in that way. So I look forward to finding out, but if you want, you can tell me here as well. Saul Williams, who I also had never heard of until this list, was quoted saying that you detach your being from ego and allow yourself to become used. That's what it takes to be a great poet. Ursula Rucker said, poetry gives me heartache. She added that it gives her joy, but for me, that heartache is too much for my tender heart. I'm glad it was said that the unlocking was written about a person in a gangbang who wasn't a victim, but the victor. Not a poem I expected to find so empowering, yet I did, and thanks to that footnote, I know that I know what that poem is about. Although it's clear she holds secrets in plain view as the writer. She said in writing a poem, even about an experience that wasn't hers, she needs one tiny thread to follow that is hers. I do that in my stories as well, so I do understand that. Not being able to identify which thread was Ursula's makes me think, perhaps I do understand poetry and just don't realize. I understand what I'm meant to, but my mind is picking up on what I now believe are intentionally left secrets hidden in plain sight, not particularly meant for me to uncover. Ursula did not specify what thread related to her, yet really captures something that was not missed on me. There was a thread for me, and I assume many women as well. That's all I was trying to say with that, is that in going through the hit list and looking at her documentary, as well as the different cinematic moments that you added, it made me like, maybe what I wasn't understanding was never meant for me to be directly capturing, but more so subconsciously making note of. Maybe poetry is a way of telling secrets without exactly exposing yourself, which is odd. I mean, it's something so intimate, but maybe the things that I'm not understanding are because the person wants you to capture what they're saying without completely revealing themselves. Which seems odd to say and maybe even oxymoronic, especially after watching Ursula Rucker's documentary and hearing how honest and forthcoming she was about the marriage between her parents, and witnessing that growing up. Try not to get super emotional. Whew, that documentary was something else, and I feel like I'm a person who prefers comedic entertainment, but there is something lethargic about the more dramatic or more revealing types of art. Comedy allows me to keep a wall up, or even if I let that wall come down, there's a way of making light of it in the end. They say a comedy is really just a drama with inappropriate responses. So we're still getting the same drama, but we're saying, but you can laugh now. Or we're going to find a way to bring the mood up at some point. And poetry doesn't necessarily have to do that. So I do tend to avoid it a lot. But that also brings me to another entry on the list that you provided, which was From Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. Another classic tale that I actually avoided because those sort of classic era Black literature works tend to have scenes and things I'm not sure that I can handle. And so I don't like knowing even what a book is really about before I get into it. So if I know I'm going to read it, I might read the back cover, I might read the first page, but typically, crazy enough, I'm judging a book by its cover, or I am taking a recommendation. So I decide I'm going to read it, and then I just read it. And I knew that eventually I would get to Zora Neale Hurston, but I wasn't sure if I was ready. And so now here's a critique I have to give to Ink and Soul magazine, but hear me out, bear with me. When this moment was entered on the list, first of all, I love that you chose this moment. It wasn't exactly a poem, but it was very poetic. It fit the list. I didn't know what you were going to exactly say about it until after I watched it. And I was like, I don't know why that's on the list, but I love that that's on the list, because this scene, I was just like, well, first of all, I'm feeling all kinds of things. But so I won't I might clip it in here, but I'd rather people find that from your magazine, which will be linked, especially if they're watching this on YouTube. But then when I read what you said about it, I was like, holy spoiler alert. I did not see that coming. However, so that's my critique. I would have liked a spoiler alert, but at the same time, in the end, I was glad that you didn't, because after reading what you wrote in that segment, and I don't feel like you spoiled anything else in the entire magazine, but in this one tiny, like 2-paragraph segment, huge spoilers. And then I was like, I'm going to go listen to this audiobook. I'm going to listen to Their Eyes Were Watching God audiobook, and then I'm going to watch the movie. And then we're going to do this interview. You know, I just did this a couple days ago. So in watching the movie, or first of all, in listening to the audiobook, I was like really relieved that you did spoil it, because it was the content warning that I needed. You took the most dramatic moment, and I know I would not have been able to handle that. Reading that, listening to the audiobook, or even watching the movie, I would have been like, this is too much. Why am I torturing myself? Why am I doing this to myself? Why did I do that? I would have regretted partaking in that story. But you spoiled the worst of it. So it was kind of like the content warning that I needed. And it was specific enough that when those moments came, I was like, okay, I already know what's going to happen. So I'm not going to be invested in hoping for this alternate outcome, especially with the genre of book that it is. This is what I was talking about classic Black literature, especially from that era. You're bound to get a down ending or a certain type of ending. Even if, I won't even say down ending, I would say an ironically down ending, because there were huge positive takeaways for that character. But on top of that, even in you spoiling the specifics, they spoiled it generally in the opening. So I think it was just like, even Zora Neale Hurston knew that we were going to need the spoonful of sugar to let this one go down. And I'm really grateful that I had that in reading Ink and Soul magazine. So then when I listened to the audiobook, it was as if I was just joining in late to the book club. Because like I said, I genuinely I would have been a melted puddle of uselessness had I not known how that ended. Try not to cry right now. And then listen to that audiobook, and watch that movie. My critique with the movie now is that neither character was dark skinned. They were both supposed to be dark skinned. Whatever. Like, Tea Cake is supposed to be tall. I'll get over it. But I am one of those people that is just like, the book is better than the movie 99.9% of the time. This is an example of that. But I'm glad I did get that movie, because it was the scene that you shared in Ink and Soul in the hit list that made me think, this is poetry. Like, I need to read this book. And that scene, to me, stood better alone than it did in the movie. So that says something to the screenplay writer and the cinematographer, because they really did a good job in making really powerful individual scenes. And I thank you for letting me know what happened, so that I knew I could then go from there and actually enjoy the story, for let the good be the good without wondering when that shoe was going to drop. So on that note, even though I was like, we're going to need spoiler alerts, I don't think we will. Because, like, yes, I would have appreciated it at the time, but looking back, I appreciate that it wasn't there. I'm sorry, I'm saying so many things. I did tell you this would be the longest segment, because it made me feel so many things. So I will consider those spoilers as necessary content warnings, and I do mean necessary. So if anybody who is watching this wants to know specifically what I'm referring to and doesn't, the link will be in the description if you're watching this on YouTube, so that you know how to find that article, the hit list. I would go straight to the Ink and Soul magazine website, look at the hit list. The hit list in this first issue of Ink and Soul magazine if you want to know the specifics of what I'm talking about and get that specific content warning before going into reading or watching or listening to Their Eyes Were Watching God. And the audiobook playlist as well as the movie were both free on YouTube, so I will link those as well. But I do want to say, hold on, we did this one already. Yes. Because I'm on this subject, I want to skip ahead a little bit. So I was going to save this for the next video, but I think it's important to say now, because this is going to take me to my very favorite article. I don't know if I said the other one was my favorite or not, but it really caught my attention. It captured me. This entire magazine, every article was a 10 out of 10. So glad I read it cover to cover. I look forward to the issues ahead. But my favorite article, and I think you'll probably know because it's like the very last one in the magazine, which is What We Take With Us. About to cry. Sorry. I'm a thug. Okay, sorry. Really emotional segment. I'm glad we saved this for the end. But the What We Take With Us article, I mean, it's like, I don't even really need to talk about article because it's in there in the title, but it's just about the things that hit you later, the things that you're going to close the magazine and it's still going to be with you, but it also has evolved you. Who wrote this article, by the way? I really wanted to know that because I don't think it had a name, which I also wonder if that was on purpose, because it almost seems like there were some articles that you all did together, and then this one being the last one, maybe it was just like the way of saying the whole family wrote this. I'm not sure, but I would love to know what your thoughts are or what you have to say about that. The quote I liked from that: "We don't leave empty-handed. Even when we think we've set everything down, something always comes with us." So the hit list is definitely something that is going to stay with me. There are some other links that I still need to complete, like the Spotify playlists. I started them, but I didn't necessarily finish them all. But I really appreciated the entirety of Ink and Soul magazine and every curated link that you put in this. So thank you so much for that. I would love any thoughts that you might have to share on this. But I did want to say it was Blue Lotus Flower. So if you want to try that tea, I liked it as a smoke. Yeah, it's also, it puts you in ketosis after one day. So, you know, if anybody's interested in the keto diet, you can just smoke Blue Lotus Flower. Okay.
So the hit list was not in specific order. We did it numerically, but it wasn't like that was the number one, that was the number two. It was just numerical. Not in, and in fact, I think I've said not in any specific order. I don't know. Let me look really quick. So the short answer is thank you that you like that hit list. There's a hit list every issue of a different nature. The hit list, I think it says Top 10 Poetic Moments in Cinema for Now, because a name reserves the right to change her mind. That's what it says. And you know I wrote that, right? In no particular order, y'all. Don't get all up in your feelings. A monthly collection of thoughts, opinions, ideas about things and or people we find intriguing, inspiring, and of interest. The hit list. So the hit list, it just happens to be Prentice on this one. I know Prentice very well. Prentice is from the Bay, just like me. I know him very well. I was at his baby shower. I know him well. I'm glad that that poem, The System, spoke to you in a different sort of way, that you were unaccustomed to. I'm sure that Mr. Powell would love to hear that. Yeah, and Ursula is my dear friend, and she is the kindest, most raw emotion person you've ever seen in your life. She is like a walking emotion. She truly feels everything in the world. She truly does. Ursula Rucker is the truth. She is everything. Oh, and you mentioned Sal Williams. You said, oh, you showed your age. You never heard of Amethyst Rock. We call that poem the poem that launched 1,000 poets. You didn't never heard of Sal Williams? Did you see a movie called Sinners? He was the preacher in Sinners. Sal Williams is one of the greatest American poets, artists, just people in the world. He's fantastic at everything he does. He's a genius. Amethyst Rock in the movie Slam. All right, so let's get down to your inquiries. Let's see. You hear 4 feet walking around. That's Hamilton. Hi, Ham. Ooh, hi. They can't see. Ooh. It's my dog. He needs a lot of love. He's a border collie. He's very needy. As you can see his paw. Say hi. Okay. So, all right. We talked about Prentice. You were saying that you felt like you didn't understand poetry. You did. You were just overthinking it. Period. You may not have understood poetry as you knew it. Let me say that again. You may not have understood poetry as you knew it, but you understood poetry. Ursula gives great workshops. If she's ever in your area, you should take one. I know you're on the East Coast, but Ursula is worldwide. She travels all the time. And I believe my homie, Toy, is going to be giving some online courses, Professor Toy. And thank you for the compliments about my poetry. Thank you. I shot those over to you because, I have no idea where my poetry book is. I don't even know where it's for sale anymore. Is it for sale anymore? But the albums were easily attainable on Apple Music and Bandcamp. That was easy to do. Yes, we do have a playlist that accompanies each issue. I curate a playlist. In my other life, before this one on Earth, I'm thinking I was a DJ. I don't know. Maybe I was. I'm a crate head, that's for sure. So I love curating playlists, and I did quite the playlist for the debut issue. I think it's like 4 days worth of music. The new playlist, not so much, but each playlist is curated with intention and love to suit that issue. So this new playlist, which will be on it, it is. It's just not available to you guys. I've already done it. It's on Apple Music and will be on Spotify as well for y'all non-Apple users. I'm gonna look at you sideways. It's much shorter and it's a very different vibe. There's a lot of poetry and spoken word and instrumentals. I wanted there to be room to think when you're listening because this new issue is so big. It literally is twice the size. I thank you for the compliments, especially for the hit list, which was my baby. As I said, I'm creative director, so I come up with these ideas and then I assign them. And that hit list actually was not written just by me. Toy and I split that right in half. I wrote half, she wrote half. And y'all couldn't even tell the difference. How about that? Interesting, right? We did that because we had different takes on things and why things should be on that list and why certain things weren't on that list. Can't put everything on there. We'd be sitting here till next year. We research a lot before we put something to print. I mean, Toy is that fine tooth comb. She just makes sure everything, because she is the administrator. I'm the creative director. So I'm like, my job is like herding cats. Her job is like herding me. A little easier than cats, but difficult just the same. But we've been friends for a long time, and we work together seamlessly. I wanted to go back to something you said about understanding poetry and getting all in your feelings and stuff like that. You said something about maybe poetry is like telling secrets in plain sight. I have a book called If. It's a children's book, and it had all these scenarios. If music could be held, if kids had tails, if zebras had stars and stripes, blah, 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 letting your imagination go. And one was if hummingbirds told secrets. So I want you to imagine if the hummingbird's secrets were poetry, right? Nobody else, just you and the hummingbird and you. It's only for your ears and for you to take in a way that only you can in that moment. I don't ever want anybody to ever feel like they're less than because they don't have an understanding of something in the same way somebody else does. That doesn't mean it doesn't. I understand the way I take in information is different than somebody else. I'm a visual learner versus somebody that uses a diagram. There is no right way. There is no right way. So, okay. So there was that. I was trying to make it quick so I could get down to it pretty quick. I just really quickly wanted to say, first of all, you shouldn't have any copyright problems because that's copywritten to me. So this is the new issue. That's pretty big, right? That's pretty big. This is the back. This is the front. Versus this one. It was a little smaller. Back, front, and that's okay. Each issue has its own life, and I can't promise what's going to be in each issue. What I can promise is that each issue will be curated with great intent and heaps and mountains of love, and that's what I can tell you about that.
I look forward to the new hit list, and the current one from the first issue. I will likely be looking at everything again. I know I watched majority of the Def Poetry Jam ones, but I didn't complete that list. Everything else, cover to cover, I finished it. I didn't watch the movies, all the movies on there, so that might be my next thing, to actually check out the full movies that surrounded those poetic moments. I've seen, oh gosh, Cooley High? Yes, I've seen that movie, but I literally was so young that I probably shouldn't have been watching it, you know what I mean? So I don't remember it, just to go ahead and age myself. But I will be watching, I'm 34 by the way, but I will probably be watching everything on that list again, you know, as an adult. I probably have seen Love Jones, but again, I would have been so young. There's no telling. And I'm actually really embarrassed that I didn't recognize Saul Williams. I guess I've never heard his name. And I did just go check the IMDb to see if there's anything else, because he does have a familiar face, but I would have never been able to place him. So Sinners, which I've only seen once, but was obviously iconic and recent, I probably should have recognized him. But what's crazy, I'm looking at his IMDb list and I'm like, I don't recognize him from anything else. And then I get to the very end and he was on Girlfriends, and I was like, oh, I remember him from there. And I don't know why that's embarrassing, because honestly, my book here, I like to think of the series as Girlfriends, but slightly more youthful, very East Coast, and a whole lot more magic. Like, There was no magic in Girlfriends except for Lynn's aura and energy and her vibe. So if you just took her and made her the main character and gave them all magic powers, that's more like how my series is. Black AF, magic, and tea, juicy tea. Oh, thank you so much for letting me know that I have been understanding poetry. I have definitely avoided, like I know you said that Saul Williams is a brilliant poet, but I've literally avoided poetry like the plague because it was just more like, I'm so embarrassed. I don't think I'm getting this. I'm going to go buy an Audre Lorde book and read that and try again just to feel like maybe I don't get that. But I do hold on to the ones that I have and always say I'm going to read them again. And now I feel way more inclined to do so because you just let me know that I have been getting it. And then watching, like reading through the hit list, I'm like, especially Ursula's documentary, or I should say Miss Rucker, that documentary had me like, I thought I wasn't getting it, but I'm getting it. And there have been some like live slam poetry competitions that I've witnessed. And that's what I said, reading poetry and watching the original writer perform it, totally different. So I'm extremely excited to get into more of your poems that you've done, your album, because it sounds so good to me, but I really want to sit with the words and with what you're saying. So I can't wait to do that. I will definitely add those links in the description of this video on YouTube as well. By the time this comes out, the second issue of Ink and Soul magazine will be out. You have at least one new reader, and hopefully anybody who has watched this to the end will like, comment, and let us know, and be a new reader for Ink and Soul magazine going forward as well. If you really want to support Ink and Soul magazine, please do look into the GoFundMe. Share it if you can't donate to it, and donate to it if you can. It would be greatly appreciated. As I have said in my Instagram stories, supporting indie art is a protest. It is not created by the 10 people who determine everything that you have access to seeing. You chose it, and that you want it to continue to press forward in algorithms and get in front of more people. So support indie art. There are free ways to support. There are paid ways to support. So all of that will be linked in the description. And again, huge thank you to Miss Epiphany Castro. I cannot tell you how delighted I am to have had you on this podcast. Medicine for the soul is what comes to mind right now. This is what I needed. You are so funny. You are so silly. It almost makes me wish this was live so you can hear how often I was laughing, and also laughing at you, laughing at me. And I love it. Do not change your personality. And thank you for changing me just a little bit. Thank you, Ink and Soul. And for those who are watching, the Rider Waite podcast does have other videos that will be coming out throughout the month of April into May. So, wait, I'm sorry. No, it will be coming out in May into June. So throughout May and June, we will have more videos from the Rider Waite podcast. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Okay, so thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to do all this. I just wanted to let you know a couple of things. First of all, so I was not a huge Girlfriends fan. I don't know. I was a Living Singles fan. I think that's what it was. But Lynn on Girlfriends is married to Klaus from the originals. So she's all right by me because I'm a huge magic fan. So I'm glad to know that you're magical as well, because I love all things magical. We might do a recommended reading list, a recommended poetry reading list for the wellness issue. I'll talk to Toy about that. That's a good thing. All things Ink and Soul can be found at InkandSoul.art. What is it? InkandSoulMagazine.art. I always forget. InkandSoulMagazine.art is our website. Yes, we have a GoFundMe. Please keep giving, sharing, passing it on. We appreciate that so much. Yeah, I'm glad that you are rediscovering some people like Saul Williams, and I'm glad that you love Ursula, and I'm glad that you are visiting for your first time, the Deaf Poetry collection, you must. I mean, there's so many good moments on there. Come on. It's Most Def is the host. It's just so good. It's so good. So anyway, I just want to say thank you really quick. I knew it was going to be a big undertaking because I'm a lot. So I appreciate you taking time, and I have a lot to say. The hit list, I'm glad that you like that. The new hit list, I'll give you a sneak peek. You ready? You want to see what the new hit list is going to be? The new hit list I wrote, and this time I didn't write it with Toy, but I did write it on my own. The new hit list is the hit list, top blackety black films that black folks dig, the 70s edition. Yep. So these are all the 70s blackety black movies that are on the hit list of this one. So yes, we do encourage people to get the physical copy. The digital looks beautiful because it's in flip book form, but it's nothing like holding it in your hand. We want it to be like Essence and Ebony and Jet on black people's coffee table in their living room. That's what we want to see. So if y'all can help us make that happen, we appreciate it. So I shall let you go. I'm going to go and walk Hamilton, and then I need to go and rest. So I'm going to see you later. Take care of yourself, and thanks very much. See ya.